Happy New Year. Thank you so much for joining. No, this is not a new time. We will be gradually transitioning to 2 programs a day in the new year. I have a little more time in the day. Might even be doing more live from QP as well. Like I say, I've got a little more time in the day now, as I've told you all. Thanks for joining me today. I hope you had a great New Year's Eve. If you have any New Year's resolutions, let them all come to pass. And resolution is what this show is all about. Resolve to resist. So what's your resolution this year? Is this have an election? Let's get rid of Justin Trudeau. He is staying. I said that yesterday. He revealed that in his social media post on X. But he also revealed it, I think, quite explicitly in probably the most entertaining interview Justin Trudeau has ever done. With this hour has 22 minutes. So this is funny. And just caught this last night. Apparently they did this before Trudeau decided no end of year interviews for anybody. Well, he got this one in just before he made that edict for all the usual suspects in the journalism world who always interviewed the prime minister at the end of December. And generally it's played in New Year's Eve or January 1st. But this is really quite interesting because listen to what Trudeau says about his retirement. Quite interesting.
Secure the border. You know who should get to do that? The Freedom Convoy people. You just line up all those trucks along the border and, they love to barricade things. There's no drugs getting past them. And you don't even have to pay them or feed them because Pierre Poilievre is just going to go back and forth all day giving them Timbits. And so you went down there, he liked that, kind of likes to be flattered. Would you consider inviting him up to Canada for a state visit like you did for President Biden?
Yes.
That would be nice.
Yeah.
He'd like that. No, if you strengthen the border, he can't get in because he's a convicted felon. We'll see how it goes. And we know that 40 years ago, your father failed.
Now, we're doing this, of course, because it's CBC. And if we show you the real clip, we'll get demonetized. The CBC is demonetizing everybody. And CBC should not be doing this. It's public-owned broadcasting. For the time being, anyway, until Pierre Poilievre keeps his promise and sells it. You see what they're doing here with the glasses of beer. This is reminiscent of this interview Trudeau does every year, usually in September, with his old journalism radio guy from Montreal. And they share a glass of beer. And it's one of the dullest, most, how shall we say, hagiographic interviews around. But this is interesting.
Famously took a walk in the snow when the Conservatives were up in the polls and decided it was time to give it up. It's snowing out there now.
When my father was my age, he still had a dozen years of prime ministering ahead of him.
Oh my God. Another dozen years?
Good God, no.
Yeah. Of course, what he means is Trudeau is 12 years older than Justin Trudeau is right now when he retired. And Trudeau, of course, Justin Trudeau was a lot younger when he was first elected as prime minister, 2015. Pierre Trudeau was 49 years old when he became prime minister in 1968. So that's what he's talking about. Is that enough to scare you? I know it's not Halloween, but that's a chilling thought that he actually is contemplating being around for 12 more years. No, of course, these things don't happen. No, but beware. So once again, this is not the 10 o'clock broadcast. Will be back to normal tomorrow. We just want everybody to know that. And I want to show you a bit of this. I'm not going to show you the whole clip. This is really stupid to play the whole clip. Just the location, the link for this Conservative Party of Canada broadcast. It's a YouTube video. The link is there. Go watch it. You don't want to see the whole thing with my mug in the shot. I mean, just go and watch it. And I'm not that shy of material. I've got to show the whole video to you. But I have to say, conservatives are often accused of having no sense of humor, or at least, shall we say, have difficulty laughing at things, certainly at themselves. But when there's so much to laugh at with Justin Trudeau and the gang, they really don't need to laugh at themselves. And I'd like to see Poilievre show a sense of humor. I mean, obviously, he didn't put this together himself. Whoever did, though, is doing great work. And this is a great little video, and I encourage you to watch the whole thing.
What do they really admire?
There's a level of admiration I actually have for China, because their basic dictatorship.
In exchange for his admiration, Beijing's dictatorship gave Trudeau an endearing nickname.
We're quite proud. The Prime Minister has been given a fond nickname in China. He is called Trudeau, which I believe means potato, and I can't say the Chinese word, it's Xian Trudeau, little potato.
You can't make this stuff up, folks. I'd forgotten about this. This is a great video because not only does it have clips that I haven't seen in years, some of which I've never seen, including Chrystia Freeland when she was a journalist on the old Chris Matthews show. Chris Matthews is long gone from MSNBC, or was it CNBC? I can't remember which one he was on, but Chris Matthews is long gone. I think he made some kind of racial remark or something. I forget what it was, but Chrystia Freeland was on the show with him. And this is a great video because it's got the clip of Trudeau actually saying he admires China. I don't know how many times I've cited that National Post story in articles I've written about Trudeau over the years, but I've never actually seen the clip. And so that's great.
Because his father, Pierre Elliott Trudeau, was senior potato.
Back at home, it takes a team to make a wacko world.
Yeah. So there's lots of great stuff in that video. I encourage you to watch it. It is very entertaining, and like I say, we need more of that. Some people will think it's a bit. No, actually, I haven't seen the likes of that from the Conservative Party in a long, long time, if ever. They're not noted for their comedic approach to things, but great stuff. The link is in the description below. Look it up. Have a view. It's really entertaining. Want to move on to something else here, because I think this is an interesting idea. Now, a lot of people said at the time of NAFTA, or actually, no, this is before North American Free Trade. This was the Canada-US Free Trade Agreement before Mexico got involved. That would be 1988. The election that year between Brian Mulroney and John Turner was all about free trade with the U.S. And those who opposed free trade with the U.S. said we would be eaten alive, and it was just another name for economic union. Remember that quite vividly. I was a journalist at the time. I was the editor of a small community newspaper, and I remember being very gung-ho about free trade with the United States. I thought it was a great idea. I did not think it would mean an economic union. Of course, it hasn't meant an economic union. Debatable whether it's working for us as well as it should or not. But who's talking about an economic union these days? Well, Kevin O'Leary. Previously, I met Kevin when he was running for the leadership of the Conservative Party of Canada. This is long before Pierre Poilievre even had any ambition to do that. And it's prior to Andrew Scheer, prior to Erin O'Toole. He was running. I think that was the year that Andrew Scheer did win, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. But so Kevin O'Leary, basically out pitching for Canada all the time, even though he spends most of his life in the United States. And he's going to Mar-a-Lago. Sorry, did I say Lago? Mar-a-Lago to visit with soon to be President Donald Trump, still President-elect Donald Trump. And he wants to talk about an economic union. Interesting idea, because you can't put tariffs on your economic union partner, can you? So let's listen to what Kevin has to say. And like I say, I think I might try to get Kevin on the show, because I knew him fairly well at one time when he was running, and I did a number of interviews with him. I thought he was a viable candidate, and he just dropped out of the race one day. I guess he just got fed up with politics. Probably has a few things in the closet. I don't know, but I'm going to see if I can look him up again. I still have his contact number somewhere. Anyway, this is it.
And you're headed to Mar-a-Lago to meet with President-elect Trump. You have said you want to broker a deal. We understand you're headed to Mar-a-Lago to meet with President-elect Trump. You have said you want to broker a deal that will create an economic union between the U.S. and Canada. Is that right?
Yes, there's no reason to be fighting. We've been talking about this for decades, and I think the time is right. What I did, and I've been doing this now for about 48 hours, and I'm getting a lot of feedback from the Canadian public. I enjoy a very large social media following there. So I said to them, look, what deal do you want?
Interesting. I haven't seen this covered. This was on Fox Business. And if you ever watch Fox Business, sometimes the material there is even better than the regular Fox station. But this is interesting that Kevin O'Leary has said this, and it really hasn't been picked up by any Canadian media, U.S. media.
And they definitely don't want to give up their sovereignty, but they really want to explore this idea of an economic union, because Canada, you think about 40 million people, size of California, unlimited resources, unlimited power, unlimited gas, unlimited water, unlimited lumber, unlimited everything. Yeah. And they're not stupid. They're thinking, wait a second, what if we had free trade east, west, north, south? And that we put all our resources in, instead of squabbling on our own border between Canada and the United States, and put all that money up into protecting ourselves against the Chinese and the Russians up north. That all makes sense to Canadians. They just don't want to give up their sovereignty. Just like somebody born in Louisiana doesn't want to be born somewhere else. They want to say, look, I was born in Calgary, whatever. But the way to solve for that is a passport, no different than the EU. Any American get it, any Canadian can get it, get the background check. They're starting to like that idea a lot more than the idea of selling out the whole country.
Well, it'd be interesting to see what kind of...
Now, this is an idea, I think, whose time has come. Very interesting idea. And of course, yes, sovereignty is difficult to define at times when you're dealing with the United States. I mean, how sovereign are we really? And would it make sense? Because the continent runs north-south, not east-west. I've always said that. But people in British Columbia have much more in common with the people in Washington State. Alberta has more in common with Montana and Idaho. Ontario has a lot in common with upstate New York. And you can even say with Illinois. Manitoba and Saskatchewan, much in common with North Dakota. So that's really how the continent runs. And I think this economic union would play into that.
Headway you can make with the president-elect. I feel like he would be open to something like that.
I think he's a great negotiator, and he throws out these outlandish ideas, and then what falls through the cracks is the winning stuff. I really think the two countries should get together, and I'm licking my chops at the opportunity of being involved, because right now we've got a leadership that's collapsing. Justin Trudeau is on his way out, so for the next 5 months, there's a void in Ottawa. As I like to say, thank goodness I'm here.
Hey, by the way, while you're there, Kevin, you're going to bring up TikTok, and let me follow that up with, are you still interested in perhaps buying it?
More than ever. You have...
Did you hear this one? Kevin O'Leary is considering buying TikTok. Now, that would be a nice way out for everybody in this TikTok dilemma, of course, because the Supreme Court right now is looking at TikTok's shall we say, argument that banning TikTok in the U.S. is a violation of the First Amendment free speech rights. Donald Trump has indicated his sympathies are with TikTok. He wants this ban to be halted or paused until. But of course, what the Congress asked TikTok to do is sell its Chinese-owned parent company, ByteDance. So if Kevin O'Leary buys it, I didn't know he had that much money. But if he buys it, that would be a nice compromise all around.
No idea how much money I'm spending on legals and our own team's time. I bet you it's taking about 20% of our day now. And right now, here's the story. Here's the situation for everybody to understand. I'll give it to you in layman's terms. This complaint's been kicked back up to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court, in my view, will render a decision before the 19th. Now, if there's a valid LOI in place that fits with the order that Congress has put in place, in other words, moving it to American ownership, President Biden is the only person that can do this till the 19th. He can put a 90-day stay of execution so he can work out a deal with ByteDance and keep this thing lit up. This is not about free speech. That's why they're going to lose at the Supreme Court. This is about Chinese spyware. This thing drips with spyware, and it's got to be carved out, so we have to rewrite the algorithm. Last component I've been working on that I think is so important, anybody out there that wants to come in with me as an equity owner, anybody that's a valid American citizen can join me at the same price I'm buying in for through equity crowdfunding. I'm hoping millions of people, including those that are on TikTok, all those 7 million small businesses, that's my universe of Shark Tankers, products and services, join me in the deal. You go to wonderfultiktok.com, see all the details. You can register your interest. I can't sell you anything yet because the company is in denial. But when the Supreme Court kicks it out, that's when the clock starts ticking, and I'm there.
Oh, anybody out there? Well, of course, you have to be an American to buy into this. That's the whole idea. It's got to be an American buyer. Kevin O'Leary, I guess, technically fits that description because he lives and works in the United States, although he loves to say he's a Canadian citizen. So I think he might have dual citizenship. But anyway, interesting idea. Might be a way out. Face saving for a lot of people. Because of course it's a free speech issue. You can't just dismiss that and say, well, it's not a free speech issue. It's a Chinese spyware issue. Well, it's both. And the Supreme Court is definitely going to have a hard time with this one. But this would be a nice way out for everybody. And I hope Kevin O'Leary is successful by it. I'm going to move to another story that's been totally underreported over the holidays. And this is the first broadcast of the year. We're going to be doing a lot more hard-hitting news on this show because, as I say, I've got more time to devote just to this show, more time for original journalism, more time to interview real people. So I'm going to try to rely less on everybody else's clips because you can see that everywhere, and to do more original reporting, which is what I've always done. And I think that's going to be my New Year's resolution, as well as resolving to resist the Trudeau tyranny. I'm going to resolve to do more original journalism on this show. And hopefully, and as I say, like the station right now, if you can, while I'm thinking of it, like it, give it the thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't. We didn't hit our 40,000 mark by New Year's Eve. No surprise. I was being a little overly optimistic there, but whatever. We'll get there in the next month or so. Keep subscribing. Tell your friends and family about this broadcast. If you think it's a little different in ways, if you think this guy is a little crazy, or you think this guy is a little more in your face, tell people that. I appreciate it. I'm trying to do things in my way. You know the song. Yeah. And, yesterday I was going to sing, what do you do on New Year's Eve? And I didn't get around to it. But we will even do some music once in a while on the show, as long as I can do it without being demonetized. Anyway, let's watch this. Interesting.
The experts I spoke to say the timing of this investigation and its results is no coincidence. With U.S. President-elect Donald Trump putting an increased focus on border security, this press release by an Indian government agency could be used to support increased measures at the Canada-U.S. border.
This is extremely unprecedented, given the fact that this is human trafficking connected to study permit regime in Canada as opposed to the asylum system.
India's Enforcement Directorate claims its investigation revealed thousands of Indians apply for colleges and universities in Canada, but once the individuals or students reach Canada, instead of joining the college, they illegally crossed the US-Canada border and never joined colleges in Canada.
Now, this is one of the other reasons Donald Trump is always obsessing about the northern border. Terrorists get across the northern border. And so do these fake students. They are coming to Canada, supposedly to go enroll in universities and colleges, and then heading straight south. This is absolutely
The
fascinating.
investigation alleges there are two entities in India with a network of thousands of agents sending students abroad, claiming one of them referred 25,000 and another over 10,000 students to colleges outside of India every year, including in Canada, where India alleges more than 100 colleges have entered into agreements with each entity. In the release, it did not name the colleges. The investigation claiming when they arrive, they cross the border illegally.
The only entities colleges work with abroad are called recruiters, right? The problem with recruiters is there is no regulation of them. They don't have to be registered. They don't have to be controlled by anybody.
Indian officials say this investigation was launched in response to the family of 4 that died in freezing temperatures while trying to cross into the U.S. through the Manitoba border nearly 3 years ago. As for
Now, a lot of these people are getting across the border in Minnesota. That's, Manitoba is borders Minnesota at some point. And that's where a lot of them are getting going. They're just walking across, sometimes in the worst weather, and freezing to death. I remember that story about the people freezing to death.
the allegations against the entities in India, they have not been tested in court. And for now, the colleges and university associations in Canada have chosen not to respond to this investigation.
Close the start.
Now, this is further evidence. I'm glad I watched this whole thing through. This is further evidence of what's going on here. Now, this is human trafficking. Yes, Canada is aiding and abetting it. The Trudeau government is aiding and abetting it. While at the same time, they're blaming India for committing heinous crimes. You know, it's this whole thing. It just absolutely smells.
आकाश भाई के थ्रू भाई बहुत सेफ रास्ता 35 मिनट का रास्ता है अच्छी तरह गाइड करा भाई जमी सेफ रास्ता जिस किसी मेरे वीर ने भाई अमेरिका जाना होवे कनाडा तो भाई आकाश भाई नु जरूर कांटेक्ट करियो धन्यवाद जी साਰਿਆਂ ਦਾ क्लोज द स्टार्ट सत श्री अकाल भाई सारे नु भाई आज मैं बड़ा मॉन्ट्रियल ते न्यूयॉर्क सिटी अमेरिका में एंटर होया आकाश भाई के थ्रू भाई बहुत सेफ रास्ता 35 मिनट का रास्ता है
Yeah. Now, for the benefit of those who don't speak English, he's delivering the message in I think it's Hindustani. And there's the phone number for trafficking right there. Call this number, please.
इसी तरह गाइड करा भाई जमी सेफ रास्ता जिस किसी मेरे वीर ने भाई अमेरिका जाना होवे कनाडा तो भाई आकाश भाई नु जरूर कांटेक्ट करियो धन्यवाद जी साਰਿਆਂ ਦਾ
Now, I'm going to have to my glasses here. This is, of course, our Mark Miller, Blacklock's reporter. Mark Miller says he's counting on 4.9 million foreigners with expiring permits to leave Canada voluntarily. But Canada has already lost track of 500,000. How can you not know? Where are they? I mean, this is incredible. But, you know, there's some more temporary residents. Look at that.
How will you ensure that a person whose visa has expired will leave? We know that just on study permits, there are 766,000 expiring by the end of December 2025. How will your department ensure that at the end of those study permit periods, those persons will leave?
Again, there are many ways that people leave the country, Tom.
Increased focus on borders.
Sorry.
How will you ensure that a person who...
Now, Mark Miller's response here is the usual Mark Miller response, non-answer. He's no better at committee than he is during question period.
Whose visa has expired will leave. We know that just on study permits, there are 766,000 expiring by the end of December 2025. How will your department ensure that at the end of those study permit periods, those persons will leave?
Again, there are many ways that people leave the country, Tom. The vast majority leave voluntarily, and that's what's expected.
So explain those ways. How will you ensure it?
In the vast majority of cases, those people that have come here temporarily and do not have the right to stay, in fact, leave.
Just like that. No problem. They're just going to leave. Yeah, maybe going south. Now, what else are we going to be watching here? We've got 26 days until Parliament comes back. Justin Trudeau is not going to be having any news conferences. He's not going to be making any announcements. It looks like the NDP might not support that non-confidence vote. This is chaotic. We are going, and in 19 more days, Donald Trump becomes the president of the United States. Inauguration day is January 20th. So lots happening here. We could have tariffs slapped on all Canadian products on January 20th or 21st. Trump is serious. You know, a spending of $1.3 billion on the border over 6 years did not satisfy Trump. This is why he is continuing to troll Justin Trudeau, to call him the governor of the 51st state, because he doesn't take him seriously. Justin Trudeau doesn't care if Donald Trump takes him seriously. You know, you watch that interview he did with This Hour 22 Minutes. I know it's a comedy show, but there's more truth sometimes in a comedy show than there is in so-called real journalism. When Justin Trudeau is being interviewed by a so-called real journalist. He's being interviewed by a comedian, but his responses are actually quite frank and relatively honest for a man like Trudeau. He really doesn't seem to care if Donald Trump can't stand him, if Donald Trump doesn't take him seriously, if Donald Trump thinks he's a joker, if Donald Trump thinks he's a clown. Well, that's just the way it is, Justin Trudeau reacts to. And of course, then he has the unmitigated gall to suggest he could stick around for 12 more years. My pop did. Well, if that is in fact his pop, if his pop was Fidel Castro, like some people suggest, Castro stuck around for even longer. So there's the lesson today, folks. If you want Justin Trudeau to give you some relatively interesting, honest answers, put him on a comedy show. Because he's a clown. That's his natural element. And that's where he that's where he behaves. So as required. So watch that This Hour 22 Minutes interview. It's also in the description. Have a look at Poilievre's fantastic Wackos video. I know a lot of other shows are just running the whole thing, but just go to the original, watch it. It's worth seeing. I thought this is where we need to go with this. Trudeau doesn't take himself seriously. He doesn't take life seriously. He doesn't take the country seriously. He doesn't think any of this really matters except clinging to power. So it's time we just laughed him off the stage. It really is. That day can't come soon enough. But he needs to be defeated in the next election, not to walk away as triumphant, not to walk away undefeated. That's what has to happen. Thanks for watching today, folks. I'll be back again tomorrow at 10 o'clock, 10 a.m. in the morning, as usual. and more information on when the afternoon show will start and what time that will be at. Thank you so much for watching. Remember to resolve to resist, and we're going to try to give you all the news you need to know. Bye for now.